What are our main takeaways from the Raiders and Chiefs on Black Friday? Is there a burgeoning number one tight end in Miami going forward? And what to make of the floundering Chicago Bears in real life, but maybe not so in fantasy? We've got a great show for you tonight. The 10th place team finisher, 10th place regular season finisher in the main event, the 2024 FFPC main event is here tonight. That's Peter Tarsiewicz. Plus, he is leading the FFPC best ball competition, the FFPC best ball tournament heading into week 13 as well. We've got a great show for you. Pete and Ferrell are both here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high stakes fantasy football hour starts right now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Hi, hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the FFPC YouTube channel, as well as the FFPC socials. I am Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on both X and Blue Sky at Eric Balkman. Of course, you know me from the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. My co-host is indeed the incomparable, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. You know him from the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. Follow him on the Insta. Follow him on the X at jferrellelliott at KFFSC official. And of course, the KFFSC at kffsc.com. What a night we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do we have not one, not two, but three Thanksgiving games to recap, we also have a Black Friday game that we need to get into as well. So we have a jam-packed show tonight. Plus, we're going to talk with the leader in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, as well as the 10th place overall finisher in the FFPC Main Event regular season, Pete Tarsiewicz. He is going to drop by to talk about all of his teams tonight and his pursuit, not only of a $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Main Event, but a $1 million grand prize in the FantasyPros Championship and a massive $300,000 grand prize in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. So I want to thank Rob, and I want to greet each and every one of you tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on a Black Friday edition of the show. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so. The show is at HSFF. I am at Eric Balkman at KFFSC for Ferrell as well. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com if you have any questions for us or for Pete. Get them in now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and Facebook posts and emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. I want to thank our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer, mutual friend Rob. I hope every one of you, including the FFPC staff, had a fantastic Thanksgiving and an even better Black Friday watching that exciting Chiefs-Raiders game, which we're going to unpack in just a little bit. I want to remind everybody, in case you are wondering, you can still build teams in the FFPC right now with the FFPC Weekly Challenge. There is no draft. There is no salary cap. You just choose 10 or 12 players and watch them ride throughout the weekend's game. So you can play with or without kickers and defenses. That's totally up to you. Only one player per NFL team. So if you want Jalen Hurts, you can't have A.J. Brown. If you want Bo Nix, you can't have Cortland Sutton. If you want Jameis Winston, you cannot have David Njoku. That's the kind of thing that we're leading here in the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Enter for as little as $35. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, and 100 team contests available now. myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, and share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. And I'll bring in our co-host with the most, Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, our mutual friend, James Hicks, already chiming in on the chat. Good evening, Balky and Ferrell. Hope you both had a great Thanksgiving. And another mutual friend, Tom Smith. 4 games in the past 2 days, and now to cap off Friday night, talking football with Balky and Ferrell. Good stuff indeed. Ferrell, this is good stuff.
These are our guys, Balky. You know, James Hicks and Scott Christian playing as a team. We know Scott very, very well. James is a bit of a mystery man, because you know what? In a comedy duo like those two, somebody has to take the straight man activity. But you know, they are both tremendous fantasy players, and it's they never break outside of their partnership. They play strong, hard, and it appears that they've had a really good day. It says they're wishing us a great Thanksgiving, and they appreciate your Packers for coming in strong.
Yeah, it was good. I went to the game last night at Lambeau Field with my son, who unfortunately was playing against Tucker Kraft in his fantasy league. So every time we go, and I said, son, when we go to Packers games, we throw fantasy out the window. We're cheering for Green Bay, but he gritted his teeth, Ferrell. Every time Josh Jacobs caught a 15-yard pass, every time Tucker Kraft caught a pass, it was tough for him. And then obviously he was going up against the Packers defense. So he is in a bad way going into the Sunday's game, into the Sunday games, but he'll be fine. Scott Christian also good evening, Balky Ferrell. Good evening, lots of football. Ferrell, you make it seem like Christian and Hicks is a duo. It is not. It is a trio. And we've already So we've already heard from Hicks and Christian. Let's hear from their good buddy Oinker, who has joined me tonight. That is ready to kick off tonight's show with a solid, and we are off and running here now.
We are off and running. Speaking, you know, Josh Jacobs is off and running. Derrick Henry has been running through, except for that Thursday night lackluster start of the season. He's been running through and over everybody. And you know, last time I looked, Saquon Barkley was having a really good. And it's interesting when you look at it, what they have done for their teams. I know you have to just love the idea of watching Jacobs have this resurgence to his career in Green Bay, because, you know, Balky, when Jacobs signed there, I think you kind of bit your tongue and waited. I you know, and there were many that were ho-hum about Saquon Barkley joining the Eagles. And then, you know, we've had fantasy players been trying to put Derrick Henry out to pasture for the last 3 seasons. And so you're in a situation where you look at not only what they've done for their teams, their relocation, but you also think about, look what has happened to the teams that they left.
Yeah.
And look at the condition that they're in. And, you know, if we want, we can throw Tony Pollard in this group. And it's just, I really wonder what we're on with a trend here in seeing a return to running back movement in free agency.
It's always ebbs and flows, right? And now next year we could see. Well, Ferrell, let me ask you this: if you were going to redraft and you have the whole season in front of you, knowing what you know now, is Saquon Barkley not the slam dunk 101 pick?
Well, I was thinking about that last night. Yeah, I had to get Barkley, and then you have to have that 1-1. And so what we're going to do is look for the new Barkley, and he will emerge, you know, the 2025 version of Barkley. But what a, you know, we're going to talk about a lot of players tonight who've been rejuvenated with a change of scenery, and it's really good. Boy, I tell you what, my teams could use some rejuvenation.
You and me both. You and me both.
And you know, we one of the things that I'm dealing with, and I want to direct a question to our guest tonight because he's having wonderful success.
Yeah.
Drafted a pretty good team, acquired in waivers a pretty good team in Dynasty. Traded for players that made a pretty good team. But I tell you, the last 2 weeks I've put together lineups that people would look at and say, well, this guy must be a novice at fantasy football. So all of us, it is a humbling business, Balky.
It's a humbling business, and every time you think you got to figure it out, the NFL says, no, we don't have it figured out. And maybe none more so prevalent than what we saw this afternoon in the Black Friday game. Ferrell? The Raiders almost end up winning a game. Instead, they extend this long losing streak this year. They had a chance to win at the end. Ultimately, the Chiefs prevailed. The Chiefs finding a way to win a game. The Raiders finding a way to lose a game. The Chiefs go to 11-1. The Raiders go to 2-10. But from a fantasy perspective, one of the luminaries that we saw in this Raiders performance was not Brock Bowers 10 for 140. It was not Jacoby Myers 6 for 97. It was not untruthful McCormick. It was sincere McCormick. 12 carries, 64 yards. He also catches 2 passes. What do you make of Sincere McCormick down the stretch here? Because this is 2 weeks in a row that Alexander Madison and Zamir White have failed to come up active for a Raiders game. And Sincere McCormick comes through with 5.3 yards per carry and a couple of catches in the passing game. Maybe this is nothing. Maybe it's something. In the FFPC and the KFFSC, we're always looking for something to cling on to. Is Sincere McCormick the life preserver that we need to cling on to for fantasy greatness in 2024 down the stretch?
Following up an Amir Abdullah performance from last week. But to answer your question, Balky, I think that takes the argument of the college scout who's out there saying, you want running backs? You don't have to spend money in free agency. I'll find you a running back that can contribute. If you want a superstar, you're going to have to go get him. But I'll find you a running back that can come in on any given Sunday, on any given NFL game, and compete and provide us with numbers to give us a chance to win. And he had a fantastic play. You know, he comes out of UTEP. He was a player that most people were indifferent about, but a player that deserved a chance in the league. And, you know, I can list another 10 or 15 that in the same situation, given that opportunity, would shine. And so now you look for a Raider team which has some pieces in place. I think they have a coaching staff in place. Very quickly, commentary came from the broadcast crew about how they see a different vibe with the Raiders and how they see a team that trust still exists between the general manager, between the coach that the general manager did not hire, who was in place before he got there. The organization looks like they're going in the right way, but man, oh man, they cannot play a complete game. And this is the greatest team sport ever. And, you know, everything works except one thing, and everything has to work together.
Everything does have to work together. And it's been frustrating for the Raiders going forward. The one thing I'm glad selfishly from a fantasy perspective is that both Bowers and Jacoby Myers have been kept not only relevant, but startable down the stretch here in FFPC leagues. And Tom Smith, our good buddy, says, so it looks like Brock Bowers could and should go as number 1 tight end in redraft leagues next year, especially, at the FFPC. Ferrell, I'm in total agreement with that. Like, I don't see another tight end that I can make a case for that should go ahead of Brock Bowers in 2025 draft.
Whoever could have got him in this past draft, when they did so, they made wonderful moves. Tom's evaluating that perfectly. So we've already figured out two spots in the first round, Paul.
We have, which is good. I mean, this is what we're trying to do.
Now, I think everybody got there without us.
I was just going to say, I don't think we're moving mountains here tonight.
No. We might be taking Captain Obvious Award.
Right, exactly, yeah.
People ate turkey yesterday, Balky. How many other obviouses can you get?
Exactly, yes. Now, Tom is pointing this out for tight ends for 2025. Tom knows all about the Dolphins tight end situation for 2024 and 2025. And that situation looked really, really good for Miami from a fantasy perspective last night in the snow with Jonnu Smith. Chicago 2 weeks ago against the Packers did an excellent job of spreading the Packers defense out, exposed them horizontally. You saw, Keenan Allen with a solid game, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift. My goodness, I'm getting verklempt just talking about it. But last night, I know it's bad. Last night, especially in the second half, I used to coach a powder puff girls football team in college, Ferrell, and I called 90% of the plays I called was the same play. It was this little dump off over the middle that consistently got us 6-7 yards every play. The Dolphins were doing that exact same thing last night. Over the middle, something the Packers have been very strong with over the course of the season. And yet Jonnu Smith last night, 10 catches on just 11 targets, 113 yards. That was a season high in catches, season high in yards, and a season high in targets that he set back in week 12. Smith had a 24% target share, the third game in a row that Jonnu Smith had the most targets of anybody on the Dolphins. That includes Achane, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins are looking like they are focusing on running backs and tight ends, especially Jonnu Smith. Ferrell, for me, Jonnu Smith has moved into must start in the FFPC.
Ooh,
Maybe I'm not breaking any news here.
There you go.
But when you look at next week, the list of tight ends that I would bench him for is now limited to 4 fingers on one hand. Jonnu Smith looks awesome right now.
I believe he has reclaimed his game. This is what was expected when he was brought to Tennessee years ago to take the place of Delaney Walker. Delaney Walker was that same kind of tight end, and it never gelled, mainly because of quarterback and offense and receiver threat and the way the team handled the ball. Derrick Henry is a lot different. It's a different team. The New England years were lost years for him.
Yeah.
And the Atlanta year, people forget. My buddy Fenton pointed this out to me. People say, well, Jonnu Smith went to Atlanta, really didn't do anything. Well, he caught 50 passes for a team with a premier tight end. And I think Jonnu Smith continues to be respected around the league. That's why the contracts looked like they looked. So anyone in fantasy who could get this player for a very late round draft pick or perhaps get him off waiver wire, it made a real wise decision, because as we talk about it so much, when you come to a team like the Dolphins with all these tools, the tight end is maybe the last thing that someone is particularly concerned with. And then, Tua is tasked with getting rid of the ball. They don't want him sitting back there with the ball, and they don't really want him beating anybody with his feet. They want him to get rid of the ball. The middle of the field is open. And you take a look at Jonnu Smith individually. To me, he looks like he has doubled down in physicality, nutrition. He looks like he loves the game. Maybe he's got a different maybe there's a different seamstress putting together the uniforms, but he looks like a different athlete in this uniform than he has in the last two. I'm very pleased to see him at this point bring it together in his career like we all thought he could.
He is under contract next year for $4.2 million with the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. One of the speediest tight ends in the NFL is playing on a team that values speed maybe more so than the other 31 teams. This is a great spot for him. He is in a great spot to not only close out the 2024 season in fantastic style, he's under the gun to have a fantastic 2025 season as well, and is definitely going to shoot up rankings.
And you A-Chain owners, and to a lesser degree, Mostert, you can look downfield and see those players in deeper pass patterns all the time. They're throwing the ball everywhere downfield to these to the middle of the field receivers. And A-Chain, of course, with his speed, gets out of the backfield and gets in position to make receptions too. It's a good time to be involved with all players in Miami and to lower your expectations somewhat about the outside wide receivers. But as long as these guys in the middle of the field are being successful, the red zone's coming, and that's when your Tyreek Hills and your Waddles will take back over.
Speaking of outside receivers, Ferrell, I'm going to bring up my opinion on CeeDee Lamb tonight, which I think is going to be unpopular, but I'll bring it up anyway. Thanksgiving yesterday against the Giants, 6 targets. He only catches 2 of them for 39 yards. He dropped not 1, not 2, but 3 passes against New York, and one of those drops was on a play he probably would have housed it for a long touchdown. CeeDee Lamb appeared to re-injure that shoulder that has been giving him difficulty the last couple of weeks, and he did not play at all in the second half. I don't know what his status is going to be for week 14, but I do know he plays on Monday night, which is tricky, and it's against the Cincinnati Bengals. Ferrell, unpopular opinion here, CeeDee Lamb, I am really worried about this guy. Not only about him potentially shutting it down in what could be a lost season for the Cowboys, with apologies to Micah Parsons, who says Dallas is coming. I get it. More power to you. However, CeeDee Lamb did not look at all like himself in the first half. He did not play in the second half. I think we're to the point of the season where he at least appears in the conversation with, dependent upon what the rest of your wide receiver core looks like on your team. I think we can start talking about maybe this guy is not an automatic start. Maybe we need to think about benching him down the stretch with Cooper Rush in at quarterback. Your thoughts on this situation?
Not down the stretch, Balky, but week to week. An AC joint is one of the most absolute painful and limiting injuries to a wide receiver. That's not uncommon to a wide receiver, a kick returner, anyone that's putting their body at risk. Then you take wide receivers that are built a little differently, and the exposure to the contact for a down the field wide receiver. And then you think about Lamb's physique. All those things come into play. The AC joint is one of the toughest injuries. The player feels like he can play. The player will oftentimes have injections to fight it, loosen it up, get it right. You weren't playing. I don't think you were playing outdoors. I think you were playing indoors. That gives it a benefit to maybe get better. And the training staff's got to be the superstar there that says, no, don't play, because we can get you ready to play better, quicker, if you'll miss some time. This player is hard to get off the field, and they don't want him off the field. Now they're what, a 4-7 team? Is that the record now?
I'm looking it up, but that's
5-7 maybe, and maybe they are on the way. But this team has got some young receivers that could step up while he gets better. But that's a lot of ways for me saying, if you're a wide receiver, whoever he is, says he might play, but he's suffering from an AC joint injury, please put someone else on the field. And that may be tough next week, but please do so, because you're going to get exactly what you see. Passes that they normally catch, they can't catch because it's just too damn painful.
I think that's the thing I want to make clear here is you may not be able to bench CeeDee Lamb based on how your team looks, right?
Right.
However, I think if you have if you have the means, you need to take a long, hard look and consider everything that's going on with the Cowboys. You need to take a long, hard look to make sure that CeeDee Lamb is absolutely the best possible choice for you in one of your, essentially four wide receiver spots, your two wide receiver flex spots.
And the FFPC, in its wisdom of Alex and Dave fashioning the rules that we all live under, have allowed you to go into the waiver wire and put your best foot forward. Plus a 20-man roster. Because CeeDee Lamb with an AC joint and he can't lift his hand above his head is not the kind of receiver that you paid for in day one. And that's just the way it is. So you gotta man up and find the best replacement. Since we had all the fellas, it probably doesn't look like we've got them in the chat room tonight, but so we won't point out any individuals. But we've had 2 Dallas games since you and I were last together, Balkman. And they were ready to essentially say that Cooper Rush was the worst quarterback that had ever taken snaps in the NFL. And now Cooper Rush has gone out and had 2 rather playable fantasy games and 2 pretty tough and gritty NFL passing games. You want to read those Cooper Rush fantasy points and stats to our listeners who are not here tonight, but maybe are listening at home and hesitant to come into the chat room to discuss Cooper.
I can absolutely do that. So Cooper Rush in the Houston game. No, do I want to hold on? Do I want to do the Houston game here?
You can if you want.
I'm gonna God, when did he take over?
He played 1 week very badly, and now we've had last Sunday and this Thursday.
Let's do the last 3
games, 4 days.
Let's do the last 3 Cooper Cup games.
Okay.
Cooper Rush. Excuse me.
Cooper Cup would be a good quarterback.
He's also a very good quarterback. Yes, 32 of 55, 354 yards, a touchdown, and a pick.
That was a bad game.
What 354 yards is not a bad game.
Well, they lost badly.
They did lose that game. Washington in a win. 24-32, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 118. And then yesterday against the Giants, 21-36, 195 yards, a touchdown, no picks, a rating of 83. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Cooper Rush is not the bottom of the barrel, which I was concerned he might be. He clearly, Ferrell, is not.
Tom Smith is playing in an alternative universe over here, claiming that Cooper got him 0.4. But Tom, that's the a great mind like yourself pays the price being an early innovator. That's all we can say. If you just hung around,
What's the line from Moneyball, Ferrell? The first guy through the wall always gets bloodiest. That's Tom Smith. He's the first guy through the wall. He's getting bloody. Tom Smith died for our sins.
But Tom shakes it off and keeps going.
He does.
He is, He's a hell of a good player.
Another hell of a good player is a player I want to introduce on the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. A guy who has finished the FFPC regular season in the main event this year in 10th place overall, well within striking distance of winning the $1 million grand prize. Perhaps not his greatest feat in 2024, as he currently leads all comers in the 2024 FFPC Best Ball Tournament. He's first place overall. Everybody's chasing this guy for the 300 grand. Could be a massive windfall for this guy this year. You follow him on the X at Pete Tars. Please welcome into the show, Mr. Pete Tarsiewicz. Pete, welcome in. Happy Friday. Happy Black Friday to you, and welcome aboard.
Oh, thanks for the introduction. That was very nice. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a nice introduction, Pete, but all truthful and very factual. Which is something that I want to get across here. I want to lead things off and talk about you leading this best ball competition. Now, I don't know what the exact date that you drafted this team that's first overall right now. What's it been like following your teams, especially this team that finds itself in first place now, heading into week 13 and maybe even week 14 next week?
Yeah, it was funny. Last week, I was in second, and this team has Chase and Burrow. So I'm like, I probably don't get first.
Right.
But then I wake up Tuesday and I was like, oh, I have Saquon. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Now we're first. Yeah, but it's kind of just been that way for this team, just kind of staying around the top of the leaderboard, and just Chase had a big one 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And then Saquon the last week. So here we are first.
I like the way you describe that, Pete. Just sitting around waiting for a 45-point performance. It's going to come from somebody. I'll just go to bed early. I won't even watch the game. I'll just wake up and see who got it.
Pete, are you a Philly guy? I should ask that.
Yes.
You are.
With a name like this, are you kidding me?
I didn't want to prejudge Ferrell.
Are you in dynasty leagues, Pete?
I'm not in dynasty.
If you were, I would trade you 2, maybe even 3 vows for Zach Ertz. I mean, I love this is so fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in one home league. That's all I have for dynasty.
Well, hey, I bet those guys didn't see you coming. They won't return your phone calls next year.
No, they're probably laughing at me because I never win. I haven't won in there ever. So yeah, they crush me.
We've heard this before, Pete, from people who win, 6-figure grand prizes or 7-figure grand prizes in the FFPC, saying they get killed by their office mates or their wife in some cases in a league, but then they bring home the $1 million grand prize. You definitely have that on your mind, as well you should, with only a handful of weeks left in the FFPC main event season, when you are not hanging around in 10th place in the main event, when you are not leading the FFPC best ball tournament. What are you doing for a living?
So I bet on sports professionally.
Oh, nice.
Primarily NBA, college basketball. Do a lot of that. A little bit of NFL, but mostly basketball.
So what if you had to say your specialty, is it pro or is it college? What are you better at basketball wise?
I would say NBA. So I used to play daily fantasy sports, and then just kind of transitioned into sports betting. But what I did for daily fantasy sports is we came up with our own projections for NBA. So I'm just way more familiar with how all of NBA works, like with the rotations and whatnot.
And it's probably easier too with the injury report is a lot clearer with the NBA than it is with college basketball, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, college you really have to dig for the injuries. You really have to find all of your beat writers.
Right. Yeah.
College. NBA is just kind of given to you.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. So you're a man who embraces variance, lives in the world of risk.
That is true. Yep.
I love this. What did you study in college?
Risk management.
It's just good. It's a good. And what was your last weekly paycheck or consultant profession?
Goodness. I used to
ask me. I'll tell you what mine was. Weekly paycheck.
What was yours? What was yours?
I was bagging groceries.
I was gonna say Pete probably had a paper route. That was probably his last thing that he ever did.
Yeah, motion. I find motion very vexing.
Like mowing lawns was probably
yeah, it is. It's okay. This is good.
Yeah.
There's risk involved in that too. I sometimes, Balky, you come on the show and you ask that question, and sometimes it's one of the best questions of the show because when you talk to Pete about what he's doing, everybody else is playing checkers and Pete's over there playing chess. Yep. With these 45-point performers regularly in your lineup, I'm curious about something. I was complaining to Balky earlier in the show that I had a pretty good season in the FFPC main event, but it has fallen apart, not due to anything other than my own foolish lineup choices in the last 2 weeks. Do you have any difficult decisions upcoming in weeks 13 and 14? And when you build your team, are you thinking about later in the season, week 13 and 14? How do you approach these things?
That's a good question. I had one today.
Jacoby Myers. Yep.
Yeah.
What a first half, huh?
Yeah. I didn't play him. Because Drake London showed up on the injury report.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really tough to get Jacoby in. Before the game started, it was reported that Drake was going to be fine. So I'm I'll run him with Drake. That's fine. But yeah, Jacoby was the tough one today for that roster.
Well, the Jacoby Myers was one of my problems in the last 2 weeks. I did not play him, and I paid the price for not playing him. And I look back on it and I say, well, he is by far the number one receiver for a team. He's not the tight end, but he's the number one wideout right receiver that has had success every game, the most dependable. And you got a rotation at quarterbacks. Why did I foolishly make that decision? So your decision was based on London. Do you find yourself sometimes your damn team just might be too good?
That is the case now with that team.
I love a man that can give that kind of answer to that question. I'm having the kind of year. Where do you live, Pete, exactly? Philly?
Pennsylvania, 30 minutes outside of Philly.
See, would you call that a skylight, a sunroom, a hole in the roof? What would you call that?
Yeah, it's a skylight. That's a skylight.
Well, see, if that was behind me, it would be leaking now, Balky. See, that's the kind of year I'm having. But Pete is just –
Shades open. Shades open.
Shades open.
It's just all coming together, man.
So this is good stuff from you tonight, Pete. And we talked about the Jacoby Myers sit, which I have him in a handful of leagues. I think I started him in half a handful, and the other handful I benched him. So it's one of those things depending upon how dominant your team is. And by the way, 10th place in the FFPC main event. I looked at your roster; it is really good, and I would have done the same thing in sitting Myers with the other guys that you had available to you. Cedric Tillman, I believe I should have checked before we went on there. I do believe he is still in protocol, and he is not going to be able to play this week. So if that's the case, let me throw this at you. Browns play the Broncos on Monday Night Football. I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing there's a decent possibility that Patrick Surtain is going to be covering Jerry Jeudy in that game. If that happens, what happens with Elijah Moore? Catching passes from Jameis Winston, who is notorious for pumping the ball down the field, and the Browns are 5.5-point underdogs in that game. This is what the people in the legal business call a leading question. I'm trying to get you to give your endorsement of Elijah Moore this week. Will you do it? Is it going to be an Elijah Moore week this week for the Browns?
Yes, before you even finish, yes, I love Elijah Moore. Everybody knows James is going to throw. I don't know about the Surtain shadow on Jeudy.
I don't either. I was just throwing that out there. Okay. I don't know if he's going to find
it. Let's just hype up Elijah. I like that. Let's just hype him up.
Sounding good. Yeah, interesting guys in the Browns receiving core that we're talking about at this time of the year. I'm glad that we can talk about Adam Thielen, who is who Permar, one of our regular contributors, checks in, and he responds that Thielen looked spry. An excellent use of that word, Balky, spry.
Yeah,
The rest of this, and it needs to be in complete sentences in English and things that I can work with. But spry is what I saw in Thielen. So, you might want to deconstruct that question. But Thielen is a player I hung on to, hoping to be playing meaningful games this time of the year. I'm not, but you are. Thielen is a player you could possibly get in your lineups. I got a feeling that your top 10 teams aren't anywhere near Adam Thielen. But your thoughts on Thielen as it relates to Perbar's more pedestrian lineup?
Yeah, I always have liked Thielen. It's like hard not to like him. I don't understand like some of the hate that he gets just because he's old, I guess. But he's always just been savvy. So
yes.
I feel like that's good enough. That's good enough.
There's something about being able to run around. Did you watch the Chiefs Raiders today?
I did today. Yes.
Yeah, good for you. You weren't in your NBA mode. Did you see Mahomes? What at first glance appeared to be the throw over Worthy's head? Looked like a bad overthrow. Did you see that
like
early?
The last play of
late in the game? Yes.
No, early in the game.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one.
You're talking about the touchdown. No, I'm talking about a sideline out route that looked much more like the ball sailed on Mahomes.
Oh, but yes, I know that one.
My point is, in reality, Worthy ran a proper route. He did not run the route to help his quarterback. In other words, they're just not there yet. Once you talk about Thielen would probably be settled on the sidelines waiting for the ball at that point. It's just a team sport. So, yeah, I like Thielen. I'd be interested to see what contribution he can make with Leggett on the other side. But, yeah, you answered that question impressively. Balky, is there any more to Permar's question that you can squeeze out?
Well, I mean, we could bring it back up. I mean, like, he has to pick between David Moore and Devon Vele. He's got to sit one of these guys. So when you look at and like, I'm going to try to deconstruct this the best I can. David Moore, 90% snap share, which was top 5 in the league last week in first read targets. Okay. There's a lot of layers to this.
Yeah.
Or Thielen, who had a 70% route share, looking spry for
spry.
However old Adam Thielen is. Both great matchups. And then yards per, I don't know why PPR.
I think he meant RR, yards per route run, probably.
Yards per route run makes more sense. Okay. And that was 0.009 before week 12. So when you look at this, Moore or Devon Vele, Pete, do you have a feeling here of which one he should be starting and which one he should be sitting?
I really don't know much about David Moore. I've always liked Devon Vele, like even from before the season.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of lean that way. I mean, for me, it's like Vele and Thielen, but I would have to dig into it more. I just don't know too much about David Moore.
Now he's trying to set one. Just answering Balky. No matter what he does, he needs to fly with OG. Let him figure that out.
Okay, so here's what it comes down to, Pete. He's got to sit one between Moore, Vele, or Thielen. I think you sit Moore, right?
I said Moore.
Yeah. Easy.
You got to sit.
All right.
Got to sit.
Permar 99.
Knew that before he asked the question, too.
He is Permar is the thinking man's thinking man, which we love on the show, by the way. So that is what we have against Thielen, or have for Thielen at Thielen home against Tampa this week. If we move things to Sunday night, we found out earlier this morning that Sean McDermott on his local radio show in Buffalo said that Dalton Kincaid will be out. He will not be playing Sunday night against the San Francisco 49ers. Dawson Knox will be the replacement at tight end, being chased around the field by Fred Warner, one of the greatest linebackers of this or any time, playing on a fractured ankle. And we know that Bosa will not be playing for the Niners on Sunday night, as well as he has been ruled out. So when you look at Dawson Knox, knowing Kincaid is out, is he a top 12 play this week? Is he a guy Pete, in FFPC tight end premium leagues that we could feel pretty good about flexing out or even starting at tight end?
I want him to be top 12. I just don't think he's there. This like Buffalo likes to run a ton, and I also think they like run a ton in the red zone. I don't know that for sure, but like I just don't see the volume upside. I don't see the touchdown upside for Knox. Like you can just pick up. I mean, they're probably not there anymore, but like I'd rather have Fant, Disley. Ertz was there for a while on like the waiver wire. I'm trying to think of
you gotta get Ertz back in there, man. You gotta get Ertz. He's a touchdown machine in his
Ertz was like hanging around on the waiver wire for like the first half of the season.
Yes.
So
what about a guy like Dalton Schultz or Dawson Knox?
God, Dalton Schultz is like,
it's been rough.
I mean, he just can't score a touchdown. But like the volume is like kind of there for Dalton.
Yeah.
Like I would still lean Dalton. Like I really want Knox to be it. I really do.
Right.
I
had Schultz and Freiermuth on a team, and I think it was week 11 before I got a tight end touchdown, and that was from Disley, picked up off. It's been a rough year with those guys. It's been a rough year if you have Keenan Allen, and if you hung on to him, you and played him, you were rewarded. It would have been better for him, and we probably would have seen more lineups next week with how many teams on bye? Six.
Yep.
Six on bye next week, not on bye this week. He chooses this week to have his 24-point outburst. And hey, Billy Hollywood's been at the line games. By the way, Billy Hollywood, Balky, needs to let us know about coming down here for Super Sunday activities. But my question, which I will come with strong, is Keenan Allen and the quarterback, the young quarterback who's looking for help and someone who can read the clock. Are those two guys lined up, or is Keenan Allen going to have some of the same vibe that he had with Justin out in Charger land and have a successful year as we move through the rest of the year? Because in some of the contests that we have coming up, Balky, some of your daily contests there, weekly contests, that'd be nice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, individual players for Chicago, like we just gotta step out because Eberflus got fired. Like, what is this offense going to look like now?
A dead cat bounce is what it's going to look like. It's going to bounce.
Pouring one out for Eberflus right now. It's just too bad.
I can't even pour one out for him. Like, just call the timeout.
Yes, exactly. Pete, I'm going to stop you just for a second here because I don't want to go on a rant. But I'm telling you, like, I don't get all wrapped up in coaching decisions or late game, how coaches or quarterbacks or whatever have to make a split second decision. I don't get wrapped up in that. I don't freak out about it. I'm watching this game yesterday as not a fan of the Lions or the Bears. I'm seeing the clock tick down. I'm seeing the Bears in a massive state of confusion, right? I'm seeing Caleb Williams doing literally everything he can to not snap the ball. Calling, we got to be doing this over here. We got to be doing this over here. And just signaling everything to his linemen, getting the protection straight, the running backs, receivers, tight ends, whatever. I'm like, this is awful. Call timeout. What are you doing? Matt Eberflus says today, we liked the way we handled it. We had a good play call. We liked the play call, which was a massive failure. It was a horrible play call because it didn't come close to working. And the time expired. I just, for a team, and again, not a Bears fan, for a team that has seemingly found brand new ways to lose a game every single week this year in a massive losing streak, cooked up a new one I've never seen before. And I was doing this. Here's the thing. I was doing this. I was giving this almost exact same rant on my local radio show today in Northeast Wisconsin. And I was like, I don't know how this guy still has a job right now. Literally 10 minutes after I said that, Schefter X, Eberflus has been fired. And God bless the Bears, because I think they are much better for it. It was one of the most baffling things I've ever seen, whether it's a Thanksgiving Day game, an NFL game, a football game, a professional sporting event in general. I could not believe it, Pete. I'm still flabbergasted today knowing what happened in that game against the Lions yesterday.
Yeah, that was special. That was just really special. I wasn't even watching it. I was actually driving to my mother-in-law's, listening to it on the radio. And that was actually just probably better than anything I could just watch, because they're like as most unfiltered as you could be without cursing. And it was just like amazing. Like just like listening to the radio. They use malpractice a lot of times. Like I was stunned. I was really just stunned.
If he moved to the podium in the post-game presser and tried to defend it, that warrants perhaps losing your job more than the action itself does.
And he did, Ferrell. He did.
That's just so wrong.
So a couple more, just real quick, just a couple more things on this. I was at my folks' house for Thanksgiving watching this game. I was in the kitchen, in my folks' kitchen, watching it, which was on a delay from the living room where my brother was, and some other people were watching. And my brother's just yelling from the living room, "Just keep watching, just keep watching." So I knew something bad was going to happen. And I was flabbergasted. It was crazy. And then the Bears, in their ultimate wisdom, so they've never fired a coach in season before, head coach. Never done. I didn't know that. Yes, never happened in the 1,000 years the Bears have been in existence.
Don't do it.
McCaskey's, they've never done it. They
George Halas, don't do it.
Halas to McCaskey, you're right, and they've never done it. They did it today, and they made Eberflus give his day after press conference, and then they fired. Who does that? I mean, it was just like leading. I mean, this is the NFL equivalent of blindfolding a guy, leading him out to the shooting. You know, the where you
firing squad.
The firing squad. Thank you, Ferrell. Where you lead him out to the firing squad, where you know he's going to die, and he's got to give this word salad answer of how he was right and how this was the right move and how he'll defend it and how he handled it right. And he's on to San Francisco, and then they let him speak, and then as soon as he's done, they pull the cigarette out of his mouth, and 20 guys fire right at him.
And Balky, the best question for Pete will be the one that I will ask him in regards to this, because you didn't think to. I would rather face what he faced in Chicago than to. What if this guy was a Philadelphia Eagles coach and did that, Pete?
Oh my!
What would happen? What would they do in Philadelphia to this guy?
Oh, is it snowing? Maybe they throw some snowballs.
Yeah, with batteries in it.
Batteries.
Set his house on fire.
Yeah. No, Philly fans or Eagles fans get a bad rap. They really do. They really do.
I mean, when you throw snowballs at Santa Claus, I get it. Like I understand it. Maybe they do get a bad rap, but I get it.
You're the only major stadium with its own holding facility there. You know, just to accommodate some of the bad rappers. So.
I feel like that's a pro. You're making it a con.
Yeah, especially if one of those guys were sitting next to me, I'd say, okay, take him away.
Yeah,
we need to separate the riff.
Take a timeout. Take a timeout. Right. Come back next quarter.
I don't think there's any in-game reprieves. I don't think they. I really don't think there's any parole once you end up in the Philly brig.
Pete, getting it back to fantasy here, the Chargers are playing the Falcons this week, a total of, I believe, 47.5. So it's not a low total. Should be a lot of points scored in this game. We pretty much know J.K. Dobbins. I think he's already been ruled out. If he hasn't been, he will be. And now you look at Gus Edwards, you look at Kamani Vidal, these other Chargers running backs. Anybody that's worth a flex this week in the FFPC?
Yeah, I like Gus. Kamani's just like, I don't understand, because I liked him when was JK out this, because like was it Gus that was hurt?
He got hurt. Dobbins got hurt in the middle of this game past week.
Yeah. But like Kamani is just like a healthy scratch, like weekly. They just want to run Gus and JK. I drafted a decent amount of Kamani in best ball and managed. I guess it's just going to be Gus. I do like Gus. I don't love the matchup, I don't think, against Atlanta, although the total's high. So there's that. It's just kind of like lukewarm for me for Gus.
What about because a lot of these players are being locked when they're dropped in the FFPC, KFFSC, obviously Ferrell, running backs, receivers, tight ends. What about a guy like Kamani Vidal, who could be one of the top running back options out there on the waiver wire that's still eligible to be picked up, knowing that this might not just be a 1 week thing for Dobbins, Pete? Would you look at Vidal as a guy, hey, I want to keep him on this 20-man roster. I want to find a roster spot for him just in case something happens to Edwards and Vidal becomes the guy, or is that just wishful thinking at this point?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's like a small window you have to hit. I'm just thinking Jake is just going to miss like 2 to 3 weeks. So you have to hit it in those 2 to 3 weeks. And then like also Gus has to get hurt as well. Or, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And then Gus just actually isn't the guy, but we've seen Kamani just be a healthy scratch. So I just assume that Gus is the guy.
Man,
so
still talking about Vidal here in week 13. How many yards has he rushed for this year, Pokey?
I'll have that for you in a second.
I'm not sure it's over 100.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I feel like he had a game.
I think he got to double digits in one game, which is just,
well, real quick before we do this. So he has hit double digits in 3 games so far this year. 11 against the Broncos, 10 against the Cardinals, and 16 against the Saints.
Those are big yardage.
44 yards on the season. November 3rd, he did have 7 rushing yards on 5 carries against the Browns. 44 rushing yards on the season. Yeah,
he's warming up.
He's actually got 49 receiving yards and a touchdown on the season. More effective through the air than on the ground for Vidal.
He's got some skills. It's NFL players got skills. Maybe Sincere's cousin, Insincere, is somewhere out there. They could pick him off waivers. Who knows?
There you go.
I want to talk about Detroit Lions fantasy players who are in business with Detroit Lions players. Sam Laporta has underwhelmed this year. Guy, it's not Dalton Schultz, but it's not been what we wanted to get there with. Now, I would say that fantasy players generally can't stand prosperity because Laporta is back scoring touchdowns in a game when the Detroits didn't score that many points. Are you hot on Sam Laporta? Is Sam Laporta a guy going forward that you think returns to old form after Detroit has leaned on a variety of other players through this season?
I mean, at this point in the season, if you have Laporta, you're just kind of defeated. I mean, he's a first, second round draft capital guy who you're like, maybe I do play Jacoby Myers over him. Like that's where you are now in the season. Mm-hmm. It's tough to click him, to roster him every week. If you have like Tucker Kraft, Zach Ertz, like you just see these guys just do it every week.
Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to click him. Like you just pick, okay, I have Jonnu. I'll just play Jonnu tight end. I'll play Jacoby wide receiver. I'm okay with that. Like, like I know he scored 2 touchdowns, but is he, or do we expect that to happen again?
Well, he had to get open to do them. Billy Hollywood jumps in, said he's been hurt. Billy's a Lions fan, so he knows. I don't know. It's just, I guess I might be at this point in the season a "what have you done for me lately" kind of manager, and that might be why I'm sitting on the sidelines in so many championships.
Well, it's just to Bill's point real quick. He says he doesn't think he's been healthy all year. That may be the case. And quite frankly, if that's been the case so far, I don't know if he's still healthy right now. And if that's what's holding him back, that's what's holding him back. He would have been a massive bust this past week. What did he have? 3 catches for 6 yards, but 2 of them happened to be touchdowns. He came through for you in the FFPC. Or if you're an idiot like me and benched him in the KFFSC, he did not come through. Yeah, it was not good. I benched him.
You're a damn genius, Balky. What are you talking about?
I am the opposite of a damn genius. I am a damn fool. Let's get to emails here tonight. First one for you, Pete, is from Bill, not Bill Hollywood, but Bill in Lomita, California. I don't know how close Lomita is to Hollywood, but anyway, he writes, "Hiya, Pete. Is it wheels up for Pacheco next week over Kareem Hunt? Thanks so much." That is Bill in Lomita, California. Thank you so much, Bill, for the email. Kareem Hunt, 7 carries for 15 yards this afternoon against the Raiders. Isaiah Pacheco, 7 carries for 44 yards. That means Pacheco, 6.3 yards per carry. Kareem Hunt, 2.1. Pacheco had 1 catch for 5 yards. Kareem Hunt had 2 catches for 0 yards. Is it time to release Pacheco next week for the Chiefs over Kareem Hunt? Your thoughts on the Chiefs running back situation going forward, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, they like Hunt. Hunt has done really well for them. But Pacheco's healthy now. He's their guy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see still split or just some type of hot hand going forward. It really just is unclear because I just know they like both of those guys. There's nothing wrong with Hunt. It's just Pacheco is that much better.
Would you?
They're figuring out how to make 2 tight ends work. Maybe they can figure out how to make 2 running backs.
Well, that's the thing. Can they? Because if this timeshare continues, I'm not sure. Again, with what are we at, week 14? So that's FFPC Main Event, FantasyPros Championship, League Championship week, where people are trying to win their league. I don't know if I want to trust either of these guys next week if they're in a timeshare.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know who they play next week. You would have thought they would have done something against the Raiders this week. But, pretty bleak scores, I would say.
Oh, that Raiders defense travels on a Friday afternoon, man.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, apparently. So. The Chiefs next week, December 8th, which is a Sunday night game, it is the Chargers rush defense that they are going to be going up against. So, and I don't want to say it's a mini bye, but I guess it's slightly a mini bye where these guys can rest. So I don't know. I'm kind of with you, Pete. I don't have a real strong feeling on either one of these guys, at least for week 14. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's wheels up for Pacheco at some point, and that's probably going to be some point in the championship round where I think you've seen the best of Kareem Hunt. But I'd still keep him on my roster just in case something happens to Pacheco, because that dude runs as if he has a $100 billion insurance policy on his body. No respect for it whatsoever. So we'll see what happens there. One more email for you tonight, Pete. It comes from Ron in Wooddale, Illinois. How's it going, Pete? If Brock Purdy is out, which Niners do you feel are startable against Buffalo on Sunday night? Ron, thank you for the email. Yeah, this is bad, right? Because you have so many people that are affected by Brock Purdy or Brandon Allen, depending upon who the quarterback will be for the Niners. You have Jennings, you have Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, all these guys, Ricky Pearsall to a certain degree, I guess. Are any of these guys startable if it's Brandon Allen once again for Buffalo or going against Buffalo?
So I'll start with, I think Brock actually ends up playing. It's trending in that direction. But let's just say he's out. I sat Kittle in one league.
Wow.
Yeah, last week. Yeah, when he scored 20 or whatever it was. I'm still not even sure if it was wrong. He scored 20 points. But I don't remember how many times they actually threw or whatnot.
Yeah, we're getting a little Eberflus into this explanation here.
Well, I can tell you, and we have Tom Smith and both Rubio chiming in that Purdy is going to play this week. The Mercury News earlier this afternoon said that Purdy is officially listed as questionable. He was throwing in practice today. Hallelujah that he is actually throwing. Brandon Allen was with the scout team today. So it sounds like the Niners do expect Purdy to play, but we have to keep in mind the potential for setbacks, the potential for Purdy being a little bit rusty, the potential for him maybe not being able to make all the throws that he normally does. This is kind of a loaded question for you, Pete, but just answer it the best way you possibly can with how you're treating your Niners.
It's tough because if you have Debo, like, you're probably just playing him. I know he's just like hasn't been anything the last couple of weeks. It just like all is dependent on your roster. Like Juwan Jennings looks the best somehow out of the whole receiving core. Like I guess I'm trying to think of Buffalo's defense now.
Well, what was the news? Maybe you saw it, Ferrell, with Matt Milano, because I know he has been a crucial cog in that defense, and I thought I saw something. He practiced in full this past week. He's questionable for the Niners. Ian Rappaport reporting that earlier this morning. It seems like he's going to be back to go, but the Bills might bring him along slowly, or they might just sit him out this week too. But I think that would affect maybe George Kittle than anybody, more so than any other 49er.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this is the kind of game that guys are aching, for lack of a better word, to play in. So if they can play, they'll go. So, and we're in discussing in discussing Deebo Samuel and players like that. I think we should perhaps take advantage of players that are challenged physically, but still wanting to go. So my long answer there is, the more injured players that take the field on defense, the better I feel about the fantasy starters on the opposite team.
Pete, I'll give you the final word on this one.
Yeah, I mean, after I see Kittle, do that with Braylon Allen, I mean, I'm just like, okay, yeah, fine. You're in. I'm probably gonna play Juwan too. Like, if it's close, like, he's just looked so good the last couple of weeks, so I would just feel okay about it.
Bear in mind that and to Pete's point here, the de facto number one receiver on this team is not Deebo Samuel. It's obviously not Brandon Ayuk, who's out for the season. It's been Juwan Jennings. And you look at this game on Sunday night, the Niners are 6-point dogs on the road. You would think they're probably going to have to be doing a lot more throwing than perhaps they're used to. And if it's Brock Purdy, that's a lot better than Brandon Allen, and it seems to be trending towards Brock Purdy as well. I have no more emails tonight for Pete Ferrell. We just have one final question for Pete from you, good sir.
We're back to lineups, Pete, where I'm stinking it up. So tell me a sleeper. Tell me a sleeper we haven't talked about that I can get in there. And then tell me a guy like last week, I was counting on the running back Taylor from Indianapolis, and he put up a whopping 3 points. Tell me a guy, why weren't you on the show last week and tell me not to play Taylor? So help us out and tell us what's up.
I mean, he's not a sleeper since we talked about him already.
Well, now wait a minute. I'm going to re-ask the question. I'm going to start over. See, the question as it's written, Pete. Now, this is something. We would like to have a sleeper, one sleeper. You don't have to come with multiples, just one that you would want to put into your lineups this week.
Yeah, I mean, you got me, Ferrell, on this one.
We've been waiting to stump someone all year. We had a guest that told us that Gibbs from Detroit was his sleeper.
That's right.
Yep. You could.
Yeah, I'm not going to be
worse than not have one.
I'm not going to be that guy. I mean, I can come up with off the top of my head. Like, I don't even see. Like, the thing is, like, I haven't even looked at Sunday. Mm-hmm. Just been focusing on the Thanksgiving and like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So like my sleeper would have been Amir Abdullah, but I don't think he Sincere just kind of like took over that role. Looked like watching the game today.
Mm-hmm. Now we're moving along because we've now got to the point of guys who have slept, but we're still now looking for a sleeper. See, those guys are now awakened. A sleeper now would be a guy that no one yet knows is on the field, but is coming. He's coming. He's the guy. Shout me out. He might come out of Tennessee. Tennessee might have a sleeper.
You like Okonkwo, Ferrell?
No.
Okay. All right.
He's in a deep sleep.
Okay.
That sleeper might be coming out of Tennessee. Sleeper could. Yeah.
Are we rolling with Westbrook-Ikini here? Is that what you're angling?
He's
at?
not even a sleeper. You hear him every week because he scores.
Yes,
a touchdown
we do. Well, we were giving you a pass,
and he continues to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's the most unsticky stat unless you're Nick Westbrook-Ikini, where you just score a touchdown every week. I don't get it.
All the Tennessee players are in witness protection or fantasy protection or whatever you want to say. I wonder if Houston's got a sleeper.
No, I think it's Jacksonville for me. Trevor's back this week. Against Houston. I think their defense is still pretty good. I think Evan Ingram hasn't been very good for a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I'm gonna say Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram, after a 10-catch performance in week 6, has caught 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, never topping 50 receiving yards in any given week. He has found the end zone one time this whole season.
That's
and
it.
He gets the Texans this week. Ferrell, it seems weird, but I think Ingram actually qualifies for a sleeper this week, given his underwhelming performance.
It does seem weird.
The season.
I'm going to let you get by with that. I'm going to let you get by.
He's had one good game this year, 10 for 102 against the Bears. Everything outside of that has been pretty underwhelming.
Nah, he still caught a few passes. And in the FFPC, that's
okay. Yes, I get it, but he's caught more than 5. He has caught more than 5 passes twice.
Who are we putting on the bench, Pete?
Yeah, Laporta.
Universal bench. Now, see, he's already in action. This is not news the listeners can use. We have to come forward.
Somebody who's playing on Sunday. Yes.
Permar's coming up with all the sleepers. But Bill Hollywood's rooting for Georgia Tech. I don't know where the show has gone off the wheels here, but I will say
that people love to watch us and listen to us while having Georgia Tech in the background. That's what it is.
So give me a guy that's really gonna stink it up. I got to bench him, no matter who he is. No matter where I drafted him.
It's going to sound a little gross, but TJ Hawkinson.
TJ Hawkinson. Now let's talk about him for a second, because since he's come back, he's had 4 games. 2 of those games, 8 for 72, 7 for 114. Pete, why do you hate him this week against Arizona?
Yes, this is good.
I love TJ Hawkinson in general. But I think against Arizona, I think their defense has really improved the last couple of weeks here. I think they're pretty underrated defense, and that is my answer.
So if Hawkinson is a bust, are you thinking that Jefferson and Addison are better plays, or will they also have lesser than normal stats against the Cardinals?
I think, it's just Justin Jefferson has just been kind of quiet.
Right.
And so I think it just might be Justin Jefferson day.
Okay.
In replacing TJ Hawk.
All right. I can get on board with that, Ferrell. I have no quarrels with that. And it
sounds gross to me, but I think that's it this week.
It's not all that gross. It is palatable to me. I get where you're going for sure.
I think Pete has bravely handled these questions.
More so than anybody else.
Yes.
To borrow, because I haven't seen Gladiator 2 yet. He is the Maximus of this question from the first Gladiator. So yeah, absolutely. Strength and honor for Pete Tarsiewicz tonight, the leader in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament and the 10th place finisher in the regular season of the FFPC Main Event this year. We follow you on the X at Pete Tars, as you have put on your caption for your screen tonight. Yeah. Pete, this was a lot of fun. We grilled you hard. You came through. If you were a murder suspect, we would be letting you go right now because we have nothing on you, my friend. There is no DNA. There is no hair. You have an alibi, and you are probably winning a $1 million grand prize or a
how
$300,000
sweet
grand
it'll
prize.
be.
Yeah, exactly. Pete, thank you so much. Have I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. We'll talk with you again real soon. Thanks so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That is Pete Tarsiewicz, ladies and gentlemen, the 10th place finisher in the FFPC main event regular season and the leader in the FFPC best ball tournament heading in to week 13. Good stuff from him. Follow him on the X at Pete Tars, PETETARZ. Ferrell, we'll go rapid fire with the rest of the emails that we have tonight, since I cannot believe how long we talked with Pete, but it was a great conversation.
We love Pete.
Kevin in Cocoa, Florida, Najee Harris or Ramondre Stevenson this week for his, I'm assuming, second running back. Maybe it's his first running back or flex. I don't know. Ramondre Stevenson is at home against the Colts. Najee Harris is on the road against the Bengals.
We're going Harris. We like the fact that they're going to score a lot of points in this game. It'll be the entire Pittsburgh roster to try to equal in point scoring. Ramondre Stevenson is at this point of the season still less than 4 yards a carry. I can't live with that. Let's go Harris.
Yeah, I normally I would say Stevenson, but you look at the way these games are shaping up. You have a 47.5 point total in that Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game. I thought it'd be a Jaylen Warren game last week for Pittsburgh. It wasn't. It was a Najee Harris game. Harris, even though Warren got in the end zone, Harris was still utilized heavily. I'm betting on the volume here. There's more volume and higher upside with Harris this week than Stevenson. So I am with you. I think it's Harris as well. Jordan Addison or Deebo Samuel, asks Mark in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Mark, we thank you for the email. This week, Jordan Addison is who had a massive week 12. Jordan Addison, as we just talked with Pete Tarsiewicz about, Jordan Addison at home against the Cardinals this week. The other option, Deebo Samuel, Sunday Night Football at Buffalo.
Deebo Samuel, since pneumonia, has not looked like the same player. And I've got to see him look like the Deebo Samuel that we know, appreciate, and love in our fantasy lineups before I want to put him back in the fantasy lineup. If I have him on a roster in week 14, I'll probably end up having to use him. So in week 13, this is a week that I can set him aside. So I'm going with Addison. As much as I love Samuel as the better player, just for 1 week, Addison has a better situation.
We talked about this earlier in the evening before the show, and I said I don't want to overrate what happened the previous week. Obviously, Deebo Samuel was pretty much a no-show against Green Bay. Mm-hmm. I don't want to overestimate. Oh, that's what's going to happen this week. Jordan Addison well outshined Justin Jefferson, and you don't want to overestimate what happens. You know, you don't want to take that as gospel going forward in the next week. That said, I'm with you, man. I can't play Samuel. This is more than a 1 week thing. This is a guy that should probably be on your bench. And if you have a guy like Addison who blew up this past week, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't continue to get, 8, 9, 10 targets this week, I'm definitely playing Addison over Deebo Samuel this week. Kelly in Troy, Michigan. Tight end question here, Ferrell. Is it Mark Andrews or is it Pat Freiermuth? Mark Andrews going up against the Eagles in the late window Sunday afternoon. And then you have Pat Freiermuth, who is at Cincinnati, as we just mentioned, with Najee Harris. Which one?
We're tempted about what we think the Steelers will have to do at Cincinnati, but they're using multiple tight ends. Andrews will get more targets. In this season of his fantasy discontent, he will still get more targets than Freiermuth will catches. So, yeah.
Pat Freiermuth.
Get more catches than Freiermuth will.
We'll get targets. Yeah.
Freiermuth's only getting targeted 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a game. It was a gutsy performance in the snow game, but other than that, there hasn't been much for him to hang his hat on this year. Yeah. Andrews is your man.
He is. Pat Freiermuth saw 4 targets last week. That was his most since week 4.
He caught them all, didn't he? Did he catch them all?
He caught them all.
Every damn one.
But that was the most targets he saw since week 4. Mark Andrews, clear upside. Go with the guy with the upside. Go with the ceiling play here. I'm just not seeing much from Pat Freiermuth right now, so I am definitely with you on Mark Andrews. Before I forget, Permar99, please answer my question. He needs to bench one of these guys. Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, or Chuba Hubbard. Ferrell, and there's some scuttlebutt. Permar wants to know, is Tyjae Spears back? I do believe he is going to be back this week, which is obviously going to affect Tony Pollard and his volume. The Titans are at the Commanders this week. So that is where we fall in with Pollard and Ridley. Chuba Hubbard, who is completely undaunted by the return of Jonathan Brooks to that lineup. He is going to be going up against the Buccaneers at home. I have to play him. So it comes down to Pollard or Ridley here. I'm assuming full PPR. And if that's the case, I'm going to bench Pollard and I'm going to play Ridley and I'm going to play Hubbard. How do you feel about it?
I'm going to play Ridley. It's an easy decision. Now, if I'm trailing and I need a big score, I'm going to play Pollard. If I'm not, I'm going to go steady Eddie and play Hubbard.
The final question we have this week is a quarterback one, and it comes to us from John in Apple Valley, Minnesota. Hey, I've been there. Kyler Murray or Matthew Stafford? This is a fun one. In fact, I have to think about this. I think I have a Kentucky league where I have to make this decision this week. Murray or Stafford. Murray is at the Vikings this week. Matthew Stafford in the Big Easy taking on the Saints. I lean Murray here, but it's close. I can be persuaded.
Full receiver strength with the Rams. That's where I'm going. Veteran that can take care of the ball, and a rather anemic Saints pass rush make me lean towards the LA Rams.
Stafford's been pretty good by and large for the most part when he's had Nakua and Stafford healthy. The Rams are 3-point home favorites in New Orleans this week. The total on that game is actually 49.5. The Cardinals, 3.5-point dogs. It is a 45-point total in that game. Because I respect you and I love you so much, I'm going to go with Stafford here. I'm going to go with you on this one. But if somebody contacts me tomorrow on X or whatever, I might say Murray.
And Stafford was a free agent pickup, and you paid draft money for Murray.
That is true.
You're inclined to go with what you believed all season. So, it's a coin flip.
The legs for me, I always usually break ties in favor of the guy who runs the ball. And that's obviously Murray. But the fact that I know that and it's still so close, maybe it makes me think like, okay, Stafford's probably the right guy here too. I don't know. It's close. And I wish we could be more helpful to John in Apple Valley, Minnesota.
John, ever since it golf threw like 6 touchdowns in one game, whoever's beating who with the legs took a back seat.
It does take a back seat for sure. How about this from Tom Smith to close out the show tonight, Ferrell? The beard and the perm. Good stuff on a Friday night. Good night, gents.
Who the hell's a perm?
It's just total natural with Ferrell, Tom. I don't know if you know that. Listen, we can't help it. It's
all natural, Tom.
It's all natural. We will continue to follow Ferrell on X and Insta, and of course going to KFFSC.com to register for the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, including the Super Sunday drafts, which will be going on the same day as the Super Bowl game in New Orleans, I think this year in February, which is going to be fun, Ferrell. And those leagues have been filling fast. I think, what are we at? Half capacity already?
We're half capacity. Dom Gazzetti's coming. Billy Hollywood made a very lukewarm commitment tonight. Tom Smith, I believe, will be on his way here. We're going to have a great weekend. And we want you with us.
Yes.
We want you with it. With us I had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner yesterday, but I tell you what, the food that we will serve on Super Sunday might just outdo our Thanksgiving dinner.
And for anybody who is like, I don't want to draft that early or what have you, like, number one, come for the fun. Number two,
then you must be a communist if you don't draft it.
Number two, I will say, I think my best Kentucky main event team this year, I drafted on Super Bowl Sunday. Like,
there you go, buddy.
That was a really, really good team. And we'll see what happens in the championship round. I don't know what'll happen, but I'm excited for it for sure. Ferrell, a belated happy Thanksgiving to you,
Thanks.
a happy Black Friday, and continued prosperity going forward to you through the end of the year in the FFPC. We'll do this again next week.
Thank you, Buck.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, joining me on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. I want to thank Pete Tarsiewicz. I want to thank Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for listening, streaming, viewing, watching, downloading. We appreciate it. The HSFF Hour will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In case you missed the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this past Tuesday, we had the 15th place FFPC Main Event finisher, Cade Burnson, Brent, and Mark Messina a triumvirate of guys that finished third overall. By the way, Mark Messina, runner-up in the FFPC main event less than 10 years ago. So this is a dude who's been there before, and a lot of great insight from all three of those guys. Check that out on the FFPC socials or anywhere you get podcasts in case you missed it. The Lowdown will return this coming Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time as well. You can also, because we didn't do a high-stakes fantasy football show on the Better Sports Network on Thanksgiving night, we did it on Tuesday night, and Fantasy Alarm's John Impemba dropped a lot of science on us for Week 13 and beyond. Great stuff from him. Check that out at bettersports.com, the Better Sports Network socials, or the FFPC socials in case you missed it, or anywhere you get podcasts. We will be back this coming Thursday with Fantasy Pros legendary Packers fan and Illinois resident Pat Fitzmaurice will join me on that show tonight, on Thursday night, getting us ready for that Packers-Lions game. So we'll seep right into the second quarter of that game. It's going to be the best fantasy football pregame show out there. Hopefully you can join us for that at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. Just build your team the way you want it. Only one player per team. You can't duplicate players on the same team. 10 or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses or not. Enter for as little as $35. Win up to $2,500 now when you register at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time for the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. For Pete Tarsiewicz and Ferrell Elliott, I have been Eric Balkman. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Football Players Championship YouTube channel. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I want to mention to you, we have 6 teams on bye next week. There is a Sunday morning waiver with the FFPC at 10 a.m. As much as you can, look ahead and see if you can fix those holes in your Week 14 lineup before we get there. Number 2, I am very grateful, very thankful this season for all of you who have supported this show, not only now, but over the course of the last 13 years of which we've been doing it. So much fun doing the show. It's a big part of my life, and without your support, I wouldn't be able to continue to do it. So thank you so much. Very grateful for each and every one of you. I'm also grateful for the turkey that I ate this past Thanksgiving, as is Oinker, because we did not have any ham. We did not have any bacon in our Thanksgiving dinner. So Oinker officially says thank you as well. Thank you so much. Good night. Hopefully the ball bounces your way in Week 13, and we'll talk with you again on Tuesday night on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown and on this show, 10 p.m. next Friday. Thanks for watching, everybody.